Hello and welcome back to our chapter on version control, and we're talking about Git. And this is part of a larger series where we're learning to become a job-ready web developer. And part of that is being able to work on with a team and to work with version control. So we're taking a moment and we're setting aside the code and we're learning a little bit about version control and how we can work with and keep up-to-date code base with multiple developers and things like that. So in this video, we're actually going to jump right in and talk about how we can set up our code to share it with other developers or just to store it somewhere other than our computer. Say we have multiple computers we're working on. How can we keep our code in sync between these multiple computers? So we're going to set up a server. Well, we're not going to set up a server. There's three different options that we can do. One, Git is open source, and so you can set up a Git server. So if you have server space on the internet, you can actually host your own Git server, and you can store your files there, and then you can interact with your Git server, and you can actually do something called pushing your code and pulling your code from that server. Now, luckily, I'm going to switch over to my screen here. There's some free options where we don't have to do that. One of the most popular ones here is called GitHub. So you can go to github.com and you can actually click sign up, and it's free, and you can actually set up your own account on GitHub, and you can start storing your code here on GitHub. Now, what's cool about that is other people who have a GitHub account can be added to your repository, and then both of you can pull and push code back and forth to that repository. So this is how we can keep our code up to date between multiple developers. Another option, and it's free, and another one that I really like is Atlassian Bitbucket. So if you go to bitbucket.org, you could set up an account on here for free as well. And this will also allow you, both of these work with Git. They are a Git server that's set up either at github.com or bitbucket.org, and we can actually store our code for free there, and I'll show you how to set that up now. So just go ahead and click sign up, and you have to go through their stuff here. So I'm going to show this how to do this in GitHub, because I think we'll just use GitHub for the rest of the series. But I personally like Bitbucket better. I use Bitbucket, but GitHub's more popular, so I want to show that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag over, let's see, I'm going to drag over my other browser where I am logged into my GitHub account. And then what I'm going to do is, one thing that we need to be able to do is we don't want to type in our username and password every single time that we add code to the live server or pull or refresh our code from the live server. So in order to do that, after you've signed in, go up here and click on settings, and then go down and look on the settings. You find SSH and GPG keys. Go ahead and click that, and you can see the SSH keys that I have set up here. Now, I've hopefully remembered to blur these out so that you can't see them, but I'm going to go ahead and click add a new SSH key. Now, we're going to have to do a lot of kind of weird stuff here, but it's not complicated. I'm going to explain it step by step as we go. So go ahead and give this a title, and I'm just going to put give it a description of a key, because here's what's going to happen. We're going to make an SSH key pair. And what that allows us to do is we will store a public version of that key here on GitHub. And then we'll have a private version of the key on our local computers. And what we're going to do is when we push code to GitHub or whatever from our computer, it's going to use the credentials from our public and private keys to make sure we have the ability to log into our Git account, and we can just interact with it in that way. That's by far the easiest, but it takes a little bit of initial setup. So let's go ahead and do that initial setup. If you're on Linux and Mac, it's going to be the exact same thing. So let's go to our terminal, And what we're going to do is we're just going to hit CD, which takes us to our home directory. And in our home directory, you may not have it yet, but just do ls-a and look for a directory called .ssh. Now I already have this .ssh directory here. It's a hidden directory. Make don't have this .ssh, do me a favor and go ahead and type in make dir .ssh, okay? For me, it says it already exists, but for you, it should work, okay? So once you have that .ssh, we're going to do another command here, and this is called Ssh Dash Keygen, okay? Dash Keygen. Now, it may prompt you and tell you that you don't have this installed when you try to run this. If that's the case, you could just type sudo SSH or sudo apt get install, and then you can just type in Ssh Keygen like this. All right, unable to locate package. Crap. Maybe I messed up that. Let's see. How to install Ssh Keygen, and then you can put Linux or Mac or whatever on Linux. But you could just search that up. I have it installed already. I have a feeling like it's going to be installed by default because I don't actually remember installing that. So let's go back to the terminal and let's assume that's already installed. If not, just Google that and install it. But what we're going to do is type in sudo ssh keygen, just like that, and we'll do a -t space RSA. Now RSA is a type of SSH key, and that's what we want to use here. So -t RSA. Then you're going to hit enter, and it's going to say generating public private RSA key pair. Now it's going to create that in the .ssh. So we need to tell it, we need to give it a file name here. And what we're going to do is we're going to give it a file name, do tilde /.ssh/ and then give it a name like GitHub or something like that, just like that, okay? For me, I already have a GitHub, so I'm actually just going to put tutorial on mine and hit enter. Then it's going to ask us for a passphrase, so just go ahead and click enter again without typing anything in. You don't need a passphrase. And then you can do the same thing again just to verify that. Crap, I screwed up again. Okay, let's try it again. Just cd into your .ssh directory, and then let's just do the keygen, or sorry, ssh-keygen -t RSA, hit enter, and then just give it a name. For me, just type in either GitHub. For you guys, just go ahead and type GitHub. For me, I'm going to type in tutorial instead because I already have GitHub. And then I'm going to do the empty passphrase again. And then if you see this random art image thing, then it's succeeded, okay? So then if I ls, I can see all of my keys here. And here's my pair. I have a tutorial and I have a tutorial.pub. Okay, this tutorial.pub, we're going to copy the contents of this over to our GitHub page right here where we're adding this personal SSH key. So I'm going to add this, and I'm going to put Curtis tutorial. Okay, you call this whatever you want. What I usually tell something like, hey, my office desktop or my laptop or my MacBook, just so I know what key pair it is and where it lives. That way, if I get rid of the computer, I can remove that key from my GitHub account, and then that if someone else gets that computer and I've forgotten to remove the key, they can't just log into my GitHub and take all my stuff or change things or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to give it a name of Curtis tutorial. The next thing that I'm going to do is, remember how I told you we're going to use the tutorial.pub? That's the public one. You don't want to use this one. So all I'm going to do here, let's just type clear, just to make this a little easier. And I'm going to type in cat, and then the name of your SSH key .pub. Okay, so yours is probably github.pub or public.pub, and that's short for public. And I'm going to hit enter. And then everything where it starts with SSH-RSA, I'm going to copy that all the way down to here. Now this don't get this line here, but right where it says my host name, Curtis at Curtis Desktop, yours will say whatever your computer is there, but get everything from the SSH-RSA down to that. And you're going to copy that. So just Control C that. And then what we're going to do is go back to GitHub, and we're going to paste that in there just like that. And then we're going to click Add SSH Key. Then it's going to ask us to enter our password. So go ahead and enter your password there. And once you've done that, you should see your new SSH key right here. Your new SSH key right here on GitHub. Now I'm going to delete mine because I don't want you guys stealing it, but I did want to show you how to set that up. Now, once that's set up, what we can do is we can actually add a repository to our GitHub account. So let's do that now. Let's go up here and click on this plus and click New Repository. And in this repository, I'm the owner of it. I'm going to give it a name, and we're just going to call this version control. And I'm going to give it that name because that's what I called it on my computer. You can also give it a description if you want. So I'm going to give mine a description of YouTube, or nah, we're going to I don't want to promote YouTube. We're going to do Git tutorial series, something like that. And then you could choose for it to be public or private. Now, if it's public, that's what it means. Everyone has access to your code if it's public, meaning if you have database information in there or anything that's sensitive, everyone that can log into GitHub or even go to GitHub has access to your code, and it can be freely shared and copied. So I recommend that you create a private repository if you don't want everyone to have access to your code. Now, if you are creating like an open source project and you want to share your code, that's why you would use public. But for this, we're going to use private. I'm not going to check add a README, add a get ignore, or choose a license. I'm going to leave all of that off, and I'm going to click create repository. Once I've done this, this will actually tell me, hey, this is how you can get a quick start. However, we've already set this up on our, we've already initialized our project. So all we need to do is see, it says, or push an existing repository from command line. What we're going to do here is copy this line right here, this get remote add origin, and it'll say git@git.com, and it'll have your username and then the version control.git. So go ahead and copy that, and make sure that you've chosen SSH here. So you have two options. If you choose HTTPS, it's going to ask you for your username and password each time. But if you want to use your SSH key that you just set up, just click SSH right here and then copy that line, that get remote add. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to our terminal now, and we're going to cd into opt lamp, and then we're going to go to our htdocs, and then we're going to go to our version control and hit enter. Now we are in our repository on our local machine, and we're going to paste that command that GitHub just told us to paste in here. And what this is going to do is it's going to add this GitHub link as your, that is going to be called the remote. Okay, so remote means the server that you're storing this on. So we'll go ahead and hit enter. And once that's set up, we should be able to do git push -u origin master. Once we've done that, if you've set up your, it may prompt you the first time that you do this to say, hey, do you want to add your your SSH key to your known host, and you can say, you can just push Y and then enter. But now it says that we have a remote, and the branch master is set up to retract remote branch master from origin. So what does that mean? Well, if I go back here now and I refresh, now instead of those weird setup instructions, we can actually see our files from our local machine online inside of our GitHub repository. So we're in our, this is our account, this is our repository, and now we have this right here that, and it says, look, we have one branch. So we have one branch here, and that's because we didn't push the other branch live, and we could do that if we want. But now our code is live on the internet. And so if we had other developers, we could add them to this repository. We can click settings here, and we could actually add users somewhere here, manage access. And then we can invite a collaborator. So if we had another developer, we can invite them to this repository, and we can give them edit access or just view, and we can control what they can do with our repository. So if we give them full access, they can push new code to it or whatever. So if we're a team of developers working on something, we would all be on this repository as a collaborator. Okay, so that's that, and I'm gonna click back here and we can see our code. And if I click on this index.html, you can see that it has all of my code right here. And again, if I go and I can actually look at the styles.css, and boom, here we go. So you can actually see all of our code right here on GitHub. And it shows right here, it says our latest commit, and it has our hashes here. So I can actually click on that, and this will show me a side-by-side comparison on what was changed on this commit. Now this commit will match that commit hash that I showed you in the git logs. Those will be right here in this. So there we go. I hope that makes sense. It is a little bit confusing. I understand, guys. If you're completely confused, let me just switch back over to my camera because I want to talk to you. Listen, if you're pulling your hair out right now and you're like, you're just moving too fast, or I don't understand what you're doing, listen, don't worry about it. Just just follow along. We're going to do so much repetition of this through the rest of this series. I do want you to kind of watch it again, the videos, and try to understand the best that you can. But sometimes until you're actually using it, it's hard to learn. Don't let this discourage you. Don't let this be a stumbling block, because if you've gotten this far and you're like, hey, I understand PHP, I understand CSS, I understand HTML, I'm ready to build websites, but I just don't understand this stuff yet, don't worry about that, okay? I'm not to a point where you're just going and using this on your own yet. You're going to follow along with me, but we're just going through some of the setup, and I'm teaching you just the best that I can what's going on. And this is not the easiest subject to teach, but it's not complicated either. It's just you haven't really seen a real world example of why to do this, and so it may not click with you yet. So don't worry if it doesn't, but this is something that you're going to have to learn. You're going to need to learn these commands, which, you know, you won't need to learn all the git commands, but you need to learn the handful of them that you use all the time. And so the ones that we've used up to this point is some that we've used all the time. Now this video is probably the most complex by far of this chapter, and that's just because we're setting up those SSH keys so that we didn't have to use our password and all of that to log in when we're pushing our code live. It just uses that as a security file and checks against the public key on GitHub and looks at the file on our local machine and says, yep, those two keys are a pair, they match, you have access to push code and pull code from this GitHub account. And that's all we did with that, but it was most of the video was setting that up. And so go ahead and set up your GitHub account. Follow along with what I did. If you're on Windows, look, I told you, I would recommend you follow along on Linux or at least Mac. Most of what I do will work on Linux and Mac. It may be a little bit different on Windows, but you're just going to have to Google how to set up an SSH key pair on GitHub with Windows, and likely it'll show you how to use a software called Putty, P-U-T-T-Y. And you can create, instead of using the Ssh Dash Keygen software that we use on our machine, you can use Putty. to create those key pairs, and then you can just copy that information over to GitHub. All right, guys, so I know that that video may have been a little confusing. Like I said, don't worry about it. Just keep keeping on. I'm proud of you guys. Go ahead and leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're enjoying the series. If you're a little confused, let me know that too, but don't worry too much about it. Do me a favor, if you are confused, you have no clue why we're doing version control, just tell me that in the comments, but then I want you to say, but I trust you, Curtis, that it doesn't matter if I don't understand right now, because we're going to do so much repetition that I'll get it, okay? Go out on a little bit of faith and understand that I'm planting some seeds right now, and you may not fully understand, but you're planting seeds in your brain, and we're going to water those seeds and cultivate those seeds, and eventually they're going to grow up, and you're going to get this without a problem. Okay, guys? I promise you, I will see you in the next video.